All right, yes, caught me red-handed, like they say, but this time getting set just to make sure that I give you the very best. Like in-house, we do get the finest mind in the continent, just so that you're well informed. Like I said, we'll be looking at the state's IGR, internally generated revenue. The recent Economic Confidential report that came out did put Lagos State top of the pack with 650 billion naira as what they generated in the states, while other 6 states, especially these states of former President Goodluck Jonathan Bayelsa and former President Muhammadu Buhari in terms of Katsina, and the current Senate President, Godswill Akpabio State, Akwa Ibom, where the states that couldn't make up to 10% of IGR, all they depend on is the FAC allocation. So what it means that those states will not be able to survive without those allocations sent to them on a monthly basis. But just to let you know that 7 viable states generated 1.8 trillion naira against the 5.72 trillion naira they get from FARC. So it means they've been doing a great job of it. All right, so we've got the president of Association of Digital Finance Association Practitioners, I beg your pardon, President's Association of Digital Finance Practitioners of Nigeria. We've got the president right here in the studio. His name is Issa Ali Shatta. Thank you. A pleasure to have you in the studios.
The pleasure is always mine.
All right, let's look at IGR of states. It's been said that 7 viable states generated 1.8 trillion naira as to the 36 states could generate in terms of the FAC, they get 5.72 trillion naira received from FAC. And the states like Bayelsa, Kebbi, Katsina, Akwa Ibom, Taraba, Yobe State, all put together can only survive based on FAC allocations. How disturbing is this? Because I know there was a time you went around states trying to teach them how to generate, revenues.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, it's just the willpower to implement it. Yeah, I know. I don't always want to sound like a broken record. Yeah, the truth is, if you don't automate your process, if you don't digitize the entire process, you're going to have a lot of leakages, right? And if you don't also appoint the competent hand, to man your internally generated revenue board or commission, as some of the states will want to put it, you have all of this. So bringing in a competent person and also executing, whatever advice that you've gotten is another thing. So if I want to talk based on experience, there are low-hanging fruits for a lot of the states. And
when you say low-hanging fruits now, it means...
low-hanging fruits are where you can actually almost instantaneously generate those
revenues. Okay.
Yeah, so those are low-hanging fruits for you, even before you can add any economic activity to cushion, the effect and begin to open the economy up before you can generate revenue. But those low-hanging fruits are the informal sectors, right? You have the formal sectors and the informal sector. But what you often find is 80% to 75% of what these states actually generate are from pay as you earn, which is, basically deducting from
source.
Yeah, from source, from their own civil servants and maybe some other private organizations working in the state. And how many private organizations do you have in those states? Because largely those states are civil service states. So the informal sector is largely not organized, right? That's why it's called the informal sector. So there are a lot of leakages there. You see a lot of people collecting all kind of tax levies. And I'm pretty sure that you've heard from even those that the president has saddled with the responsibility of harmonizing all of the tax system in Nigeria so that we can avoid double taxation. Have also spoken about all of these multiple tax collections, which are not really good for the economy. We are not seeing the value. Why? Because he's not coming into the formal system. So once we can digitize the process first, and they are keen in implementing those processes, then we have taken the first step in generating, revenue for the informal sectors. Now, if you want to drill down, I would say it's quite disturbing that Lagos actually didn't perform as well as they did last year. And you want to ask the question why?
And still, they are miles away from other 29 states.
Exactly. Because if you look at it, right, look at the economic activity that is taking place in Lagos. I mean, you keep expanding. You have a lot of activities, especially in the financial sector
Okay.
that are based in Lagos. And that bucket or that...
Are we talking about fintech?
Yeah, fintech. Yeah, okay. You can talk fintech, the new banks. You know, you can name them. Even the traditional banks that we have are also going digital right now. So there's a whole lot of things that are happening, you know, within that space. And ordinarily, you want to expect Lagos to be performing more than, you know, they are doing. So it's a bit worrisome for me.
Yeah.
Then if you also drill down to, you know, place like here in Abuja, for instance, where we ordinarily expect, you know, them to also generate more in revenue. You know, it's all boiled down to first opening up the economic system, infrastructure. For instance, let me give you an example in the States. How can you there's a local government in Kaduna State.
Okay.
On the market day, the economic activity that happens there, this was like 6-7 years ago, is a grain market. They generate about...
It's a grain market?
Yeah, grains market.
Grains,
yeah,
okay,
grains.
okay, grains, okay.
They generate about 3 billion in terms of total process value on a market day.
3 billion?
3 billion naira.
Wow.
Right? So, and you have a pocket of those kind of markets spread across the entire northern
region.
States. Yeah. So, if you even imagine what happened between the border of Sokoto and Niger, the economic activity that is happening there, right? Together, the same thing with Kebbi, right? You can go on, Maiduguri, you know, as the case may be. So one of the things I feel we need to first take care of is the security. You know, when you have a lot of this large insecurity across all of these border states, you know, economic activities will slow down. Then you cannot plug in all of those automated systems to connect, because even people who want to go and deploy them in those places will be a bit apprehensive, right? So you need to first take care of the security. Then farming activities can fully continue as well. You know, all of these things are the ripple effect that we get, you know, when we don't really put the security means to guide or to safeguard the citizens in those rural area or the peri-urban centers. Then you also want to talk about the next activities, which is all of these conditional cash transfers. That you're seeing. You know, you're pumping a lot of money into the system, right? And all of these things go back to the market. So how are you tracking everything that has been spent, you know, when you are giving cash? So sometimes, you know, there are a lot of policies that we need to look at that are actually not anti-people, but it is how they are being implemented.
So like the conditional cash transfer currently being done by this administration, even talking about the 25,000 naira paid to vulnerable families, the fact that we cannot really tell which family is vulnerable, and also no data to really tell, is it true 1.5 million families have actually gotten these monies? Yes. So how does technology play a key role in this now?
It's correct. See, we have all of the mechanism already established. Funny enough, you have your BVN, you have your NIN. You know, you can trace all of these people. They are human beings. You know, they have identities, right? So once you are able to first identify, just like you have said, the data to use.
The data to use.
You know, then who mined those data? Who is responsible in mining those data to really tell us that?
So it's very key.
Yeah, very, very important. You know, these guys are really human beings. They locate, they live in a particular location and all of that. So if you're able to aggregate all of these together, it's easy, you know, for you to just plug and play. Why? Because one, you have all of the identities of the people who are there. Even if they don't have BVN, some of them have phones. For those who don't have phones, right? I remember the time we did a deployment for International Committee for the Red Cross, which was in 2015. None of the beneficiaries had phones, but we deployed...
Which area was that? Which community?
Was specifically was in Adamawa, Michika.
Michika, okay.
Yeah, Michika, Madagali.
Madagali, okay.
Yeah, to be specific. You know, we deployed what they call NFC card, Near Field Communication Card, to all of these beneficiaries. First, we went into the committee to do enumeration. So we're able to identify first those vulnerable individuals.
Okay.
Then we went back and issue them these cards. So you can see that because it's an international committee, organization, right? Yeah. they had to go through this process, to first mine those data, identify who those beneficiaries are, then begin to deploy, the conditional cash transfer services. So I think we can replicate it in Nigeria. It's not rocket science.
Okay, so
we've done it before.
So
can
we say states like Bayelsa, Kebbi, Katsina, Akwa Ibom, Taraba, Yobe states that could barely raise up to 10% of their IGR? It was down to the government, government not being proactive or not having the right people or just not interested in generating revenue.
I wouldn't necessarily say not interested. It's just getting the right people there, like I've said. If you don't see people who can actually identify opportunities immediately and plug into it, before you can generate revenue, you need to create an economy activities. You need to bring in infrastructure. You need to put those roads there. You need to put security there. You need to put electricity there.
Is it not worrisome? These are states of former presidents of the country. Immediate past president Muhammadu Buhari, Katsina State, for instance. Do they have any reason to be among those states? Are we saying Masari did a very poor job of governing the state? Look at Bayelsa, Goodluck Jonathan.
I wouldn't necessarily want to pin it down to that. Because of the fact that so now you can say the current president we have.
Even Godswill Akpabio, current Senate president.
Now you can say the current president we have that is coming from Lagos. You can say that his state is performing, but by default, Lagos has been performing. So I wouldn't necessarily want to categorize it in that way. I would just say that you need to do the right
because
thing.
He set the pace for Lagos. So can we say it was down to the fact that people who have come from there were technically not.
No, it will be fair. It will be unfair, rather, to other states for you to compare Lagos to other states. First, Lagos, of course, has been the economic hub of Nigeria, right? And it was the former capital of Nigeria as well. So there are a lot of infrastructures, there are a lot of organizations that have actually established their headquarters in Lagos. So you can't use that, as a yardstick or basis, to punish these states. So the truth is, that, like I told you, there are things that we can almost do immediately. Like for instance, Akwa Ibom. Akwa Ibom has Ibom Air. There's a whole lot of economic activities happening there.
But they still couldn't raise 10%.
So I'm quite surprised. That's why I said you need to create an enabling environment.
Oil-producing state again.
Yeah, you need to create an enabling environment, to make all the economic activities thrive. And those economic infrastructure that you need to bring in, give us access to road, give us access to electricity. All of these things are things that generate economic activity, and from there you can tax that process. So when you create the infrastructure, so I think for me, everybody should be asking questions as to how much most of these state government or governors are putting in infrastructure, most especially in their budget. Now we are getting another budget for the next year. So what have they put for capital expenditure? You understand? Because these are all the economic activities that will snowball into, generating this revenue. That's why for the first time, even if you want to criticize the current budget that we have, you can see that the current administration have set a blueprint, right? And it's more or less like a KPI, for the budget that they have
KPI
passed.
is the key
performance indicators. Yeah, because in the budget, they have clearly stated that they want to generate 18 trillion, right? And you'll be asking how, given what we've generated
and
this
the
year.
oil benchmark they have put also.
Yeah, but it can happen. Because I know that at the background, there are a lot of harmonization that are taking place. They are also even giving tax holiday to some companies just to create that. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Create those economic activities. Once those economic activities are thriving, then you can now generate your income from there. So prior before now, nobody was thinking about 7.5% of VAT. Nobody was talking about stamp duties. But if you look at what those just these two tweak to the economy has generated. Why? Because we've automated the process of collection, and that's why you can see that the ripple effect has been so huge and massive. So if we can do the same thing across board in the informal sector, whereby we create those economic activities in the rural and peri-urban communities, right, we'll be able to facilitate, right, and also generate more revenue.
Okay, let's look at in 2021, we had the states generated 1.76 trillion naira, and in 2022, it was 1.8 trillion naira. would you say this progress, put it down to some of the issues you raised, but for other states, apart from the 7 states that have been thriving, what would be the steps for these other governors to take, especially for them to be able to get the right people? Can we say we do not have enough manpower, the right manpower?
No, I disagree. We have the best brains in Nigeria.
Because you're the president of the Association of Digital Finance Practitioners. How much do we have? Practitioners do we have in Nigeria?
We have a lot. Trust me, we have a lot.
So why are they not going to these states to, especially with this kind of reports, they should be swarming on, because we have 29 states that are not doing well. That's enough market.
Yeah, so to us as well, we are trying to see how we can form a strategic partnership with some of these states.
Okay.
You understand? Not just the states, even some of the regulators, and pass some policy documents that can help the economy as well. We don't necessarily want to wait for them to call on us. As a matter of fact, we've had a lot of engagement, we've had a lot of interaction, and we are still contributing, and we continue to contribute. So for me, I feel it's more or less like having a handshake with some of these state governors or government and open their eyes to a lot of things that they can do differently. If I want to isolate a state, for instance, for you, to say that if you pick Kogi State, for instance, Kogi State is strategic in Nigeria. Why? Because it's centrally positioned and is bordering close to about, I think, 10 to 11 states in Nigeria. So that tells you the kind of economic activity that is supposed to be happening in that state.
Around that state,
you understand? Even if it is just to pass through. Now, what infrastructure have you put in place? Most especially
to generate income, even if
road
networks.
Networks, exactly. Those are the low-hanging fruits. So if you have an understanding with the federal government, yes, we know these are federal roads, but we want to take it upon ourselves to develop or to construct those roads. But we are going to be collecting toll gates, you understand, for the next 10 years. That is a low-hanging fruit for you already. Then what economic activities are you also going to position there for people to be looking at Kogi State as the next point of holiday, right, for tourism and all of that? So there's a whole lot that you can do to facilitate and generate revenue if you create value. If you create value and add value to the system, you're also going to get a positive result out of it.
For Kogi, for instance, why do you think the government is not looking at that direction? Is it safe to say because of the FAC allocation? Is it more of a blessing or a curse?
Yeah, so I think I was discussing with somebody when we had our last engagement for the year in our association. And I mentioned to them, I said, look, I think it would be better if federal government can suspend FAC allocation.
Or give it to only states that have improved.
No, just even stop it for now and say, look, generate your own
revenue
and give us X%, from what you have generated. I'm telling you, everybody will sit up. I'll give you an example. For instance, right, you go to, why is it that other public sectors in Nigeria are performing more than others? It is because they have created value. They've created, I'll give you CAC, for instance. Immediately CAC, Corporate Affairs Commission, digitize their process. You can see the amount of revenue they've generated and they are generating, and giving back to, the federal government. The same thing can happen across board. Create value, ensure that, all these states begin, once they know that there's no money coming from anywhere, right, they will sit down, go back to the drawing board, and think outside the box to see where they can source for resources, to bring both human resources and whatever natural resources they have in their state, put them together and begin to make their economy activities to thrive. If that happens, trust me, everybody will sit up and you will see the ripple effect of how they can generate their internally generated revenue from maybe, let's say, 0% to maybe 15 to 25%, which I think will be a starting point for some of those states.
All right, let's focus on the northern region because it's a very important region in Nigeria. Just recently, the statistics as regards the number of out-of-school children, very alarming and very disturbing. The confidential report that just came out, Economic Confidential report, says only 3 states in the northern region were able to generate IGRO up to 20%, which is Kaduna, Kwara, and Nasarawa. How disturbing is this, and is it a surprise that just only these three states could raise as much as 20% of their IGR?
Yeah, it's not surprising. You know, in my opening glee, I mentioned it, that if you don't correct the insecurity situation in the northern states, initially it
but
was...
Kaduna still suffers from insecurity too.
Yeah, Kaduna suffers from it, right? But you want to look at what value. It goes back to value. What value has the previous governor put in place? In all of the economic summit that Kaduna has had, look at Kaduna Investment Promotion Commission that they have as well. So all of these things are actually creating value in the economy and generating income from it. So they are able to attract investors to come into their state, even as unsecured as you may think it is. But they've been able to add value to their own economy in that state and generate more. But largely speaking, across the northern states, is initially the insecurity situation was isolated at the northeast. Now it has spread to northwest central, right, as well. So if we can correct that anomalies, trust me, the combined states in the northern part of Nigeria can give us more than 80% or even 90%.
You think they've got what are the low-hanging fruits, so to say, using your words now, for the northern region and other things they can do, because we're trying to also enlighten the state governors as to what they can do in the northern region.
Trust me, they already know all of these things. So like someone would tell you, Nigerian problems are best solved on papers. They've gotten the best proposals. The point is the will to execute
but
it.
But why is there no will when you know this is going to be for the benefit of
we
the
just
state
spoke about it earlier. When I know that if I sit and at the end of the month I get money that is coming in. So let me just use a sales officer, for instance. If a sales officer is earning X amount, and he knows that if he's able to add more value or more sales to the organization, he gets 15% or 10% of the commission that is coming. You will see his output, his productivity will be higher, right? It's the same thing. I mean, it's not rocket science. You can replicate the same metrics, right, across the states. So now, to the question you asked, if you look at what has been happening over time, you will see that you see a lot of contractors, a lot of consultants go and present best proposals, but they don't execute it. Or they will not take it, replicate it, and give it to other. We know what happens. They give it to another person to do. So because it wasn't your original idea, of course you won't be able to execute 100%. You will not even be able to start. So if they have that genuineness of purpose, sincerity of purpose to implement what they have already, it's not rocket science. They already knew that they have mineral resources. Okay. They already knew that they engage in agricultural activities. They also already know that they have a lot of market where they can aggregate and get a lot of income from if it's properly organized, if they create a lot of infrastructure and security. So I keep on going. If you don't invest first, the first point of call is for them to invest in security.
Okay.
You know, once you've taken care of the security, why do you think those are the non-state actors that are engaged with this insecurity activity are engaged in economic activities?
Yes, like we have in the mining sector,
of course,
the fishing,
of course, in the mining, in the agriculture. So they've
sector.
taken over. So if you don't invest in security, in securing your state, to ensure that you take back those economic activities, you will be unable to generate income, right? And this culture of always, coming to Abuja to stay in your state, solve the problem that you have in your state, isolate it. You have the best brain in your state to help you out. You have a lot of people who are spread across different private organizations who have gotten years of experience. They can come back home to help you turn out. But first, again, you need to make that place conducive for them for it to be attractive enough for them to come. So you need to first secure your state, then begin to generate those economic activities.
All right, we've talked about the northern region. Let's go to the southeast where Anambra generates just 33 billion naira, which is surprising because you look at Anambra, you say, okay, this Igbos, they're known for businesses, merchandise, import, export, and all that, but they were able to only generate 33 billion naira, and they've got 127 billion naira coming as FAC every month. Then Enugu generates very poorly, 28 billion in my own estimation, knowing the coal city and everything, just 28 billion naira, and they get 111 billion naira from FARC. Let's look at the Southeast. Are you disappointed that the Southeast is not among the top 7 viable states in the country?
You can't be disappointed. It goes back to insecurity again. What has been happening? The economic activities have been truncated with sit at home. Right? So you can't, the truth is, if you don't get your security right, economic activities will slow down.
We can say this report is not fair on the states that are suffering insecurity.
Yes. The truth is, every time there is fear, there is chaos. When you hear about sit at home, even when people genuinely want to go out, you see a lot of people were even shot and killed, when they wanted to go out to work during the sit at home order. So you need to really address all of this. If you don't, you continue to have, this. And to even centralize, I don't want to isolate, to centralize the issue. I will ask you a question. If you have a company in Nigeria that is generating 600 billion in revenue or 800 billion, a company versus a state, and that company probably doesn't have more than 23 or 60 or 70 staff. Right. So if you look at it, do your cost-benefit analysis. If you juxtapose it with a state that has all the resources, all the paraphernalias of generating revenue, yet you have a company that is domiciled in that state, generating far more than that state, who will you invest in? You definitely want to invest in the company.
Definitely.
So that's why I said it's not rocket science. You can, Anambra State, for instance, used to be one of the best performing states. Right? So what has happened? What changed? Insecurity. Insecurity and the willpower to follow a template that probably the previous governors have set, right? So we need to imbibe that culture of continuity, most especially when you already have a template that is working. You don't need to, discontinue it, or you don't need to even expunge it in your system. You just need to continue to sustain it, to fine-tune, to tweak, and see how you can make it better, right? So we can talk here for all day, but the truth is, the basics that we need to do, if you don't do it, if you don't put it on the table, and it's there, we will continue to have, you can't continue to do something and expect a different report, a report or result, right? You need to be able to at least make that effort to change. Just tweak one thing that you're doing wrongly and see how the results will pan out for you.
Okay, as we wrap up, what will be your, expert in this field now, what will be your expert advice to states like Bayelsa, Kebbi, because those are Akwa Ibom, those are states that have been singled out, Yobe State, Taraba, are states that did very poorly, couldn't generate up to 10%. Yes, we know they're suffering insecurity, but what other factors can they plug in? And this issue of insecurity, is there a way out?
Of course, there's a way out. We are fighting enemy within. There's a way out, and I think our security apparatus have said a lot of things. Approaching it kinetic, non-kinetic approach. And
they've also made some confessions recently when they interfaced with the House of Rep, when they said some prison warders help these insurgents to do transfers out of
exactly. So it's enemy within. Information gathering is very key. That intelligence, I'm very sure, I'm 100% certain that Nigeria has high intelligence gathering mechanism. If we can act on it, right, it will help us. And you see, when we talk about the digital space, we're just not talking about the digital space in isolation, right? I can't come on air and tell you certain things, but the truth is, based on our profession, there's what we call anti-money laundering, policies. There's a whole lot of guidelines that is around that. There are a lot of things we look out for, and I can guarantee you that we can use that to isolate, to close down on a lot of criminal activities.
Can you give us some of this?
I can't disclose that on air. So, but the truth is, there's a whole lot that we can do using data. Like I said, using data to solve a lot of problems. And that's the reason why we must make that conscious effort to bring almost all the economic activities on the digital space. Once that happens, there's a multiplier effect across the different value chain, most especially even in the security aspect. Now, to answer you correctly again, we need to change the mindset of all of the people that are mining, the internally generated revenue boards. Annually, they organize themselves. I'm aware, the chairman, and go to Lagos to see what Lagos is doing. But you ask yourself one fundamental question: why haven't you at least replicate, even if it is 20 or 30% of what Lagos is doing? But again, what Lagos is doing is not final. There are a lot of things that you can still do beyond what Lagos is doing, because your environment is different, right? Your economic activities is different. So is there a way you can genuinely, because the head of internally generated revenue board, the commissioner of finance, and the state governor, these three people need to be working hand in hand, right? Or the commissioner for budget and planning as well. Because if they are able to work together, they will be able to set a target for themselves, meet that target, but there will also be an economic will, that willpower. The willpower. You understand? To get the job done. Because you can't ask state citizens to pay tax when I don't see the value. There's no good road for me. I don't have electricity. I don't have water. I don't have health. So if I know that all of these things will be given to me, and I have a social insurance or a social safety net card, where I know that my kids can go to the hospital and access free healthcare delivery system, top notch or for global standard, I will be willing to pay more tax because I know that there's a subsidy for me, for healthcare, for electricity, for security, and all of that. So Nigerians are not difficult, to manage. It is just that willpower of the leaders to do the right thing. And
you talk about Lagos. What Lagos is doing is not final. Lagos is a coastal region. We have Bayelsa also along the coastal lines. Why is Lagos being able to tackle the insecurity across the country, and why are other states like Bayelsa not able to do the same, even when Lagos is larger in population?
I know that
landmass.
I know that one of the cardinal principles for all of the governors that had come in for Lagos State, the first thing on the agenda is security. They don't joke with it. Right? And if you don't have enough electricity to power your road, you also cannot secure your citizens. So there's a whole lot of things that are entangled in one. When you have stable electricity, let me give you an example. If you have stable electricity, every home has stable electricity. I can power the street lights from Abuja to Kaduna to Kano. So people can travel at night. You can see ahead, right? Then in the educational sector, the students, the lecturers, the researchers can do more research to help the economy and develop things, right?
People are busy.
But if I have to power a generator almost every now and then, as an alternative source of energy, there's a problem, because the amount of money I will put in to invest, to even do this research and discover a lot of things I want to do to help the economy, it's frustrating. So chances are I won't be encouraged, to even take a step further. I'll give an example. There's a professor, a Nigerian professor that was just appointed as the president of Cambridge, right? She's legendary for one particular thing, research. And she said research is like a food to her soul. Why? She's been able to thrive outside Nigeria because there is an enabling environment for her to thrive. It's not rocket science. That's why I keep saying that we have the brains, but we don't have the required facilities, to encourage people to bring in their best and give us a better output.
All right, so we hope the state government, especially for Bayelsa, Katsina, and Taraba, Yobe states are listening carefully, and they will do the needful to ensure that they improve on their state's IGR. We've been talking with the president of the Association of Digital Finance Practitioners of Nigeria, a foremost body who've got the expertise in dealing with financial issues, especially digitally speaking. And the president, Issa Ali Shatta, has been amazing this morning, trying to put everything right as to regards how Lagos is topping the chart and the other 29 states are playing catch up. All right, I want to say a big thank you for joining me this morning. We hope I will be calling you more often to help us look at other very important issues plaguing Nigeria.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
All right, you're watching Africa's Finest Breakfast Show, Global Morning on Global Television. We'll be going for another quick break. And after the break, hopefully we'll be having some officials of the Association of Local Government of Nigeria come join us in the studio to help us look at what's playing out in Rivers State as regards the caretaker committees that was initially instituted by Fubara, but the new peace deal says there's not going to be anything as caretaker committees for the local governments in Rivers and across the 36 states of the Federation. So we'll be looking at that issue and other issues making the rounds. We'll also be going back to our papers somewhere along the line to give you some other big stories making the rounds. Stay with us. Our Global Morning, like I always say, just started.